gummy bear.
It's the internet, you're busy. Let's do this for July 25th, 2022. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, San Diego Comic-Con announcements continue in my basement. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Mike Williams from Fanbyte, everybody. Mike, how's it going?
Good. How's everything going? I mean, other than the fact that it's morning.
Yes.
Like, Game Mess mornings. Couldn't it be Game Mess afternoons?
I thought about it. Listen, I did it as late in the morning as I possibly could get away with, 11 a.m. I'm like, that works for me. That's still technically morning. It's always morning somewhere, Mike. I suppose we could just do it any time of day and just be like, it's morning right now in Hawaii. All right, we're good. Welcome to 2 p.m. here on Game Mess Mornings Live Eastern Time. I don't know. I haven't talked to you in a while. I got to tell the chat, Mike's one of my favorite people in the industry. I always love when I see him. Mike is fantastic. How you been?
I've been good. Just worked at US Gamer for about 8 years. Then moved from there to PC Mag once the pandemic hit and we were owned by an events company. So, no events made things a little difficult. But now I'm over at Fanbyte, writing at general entertainment stuff for them, but also primarily over at the Link Show, which is our Final Fantasy 14 vertical.
Right. Yeah. You guys have you guys have the market cornered on Final Fantasy 14 fans working for a website writing about that game, right? Like that's the entire business model over there at Fanbyte, is my understanding.
We are currently getting there. We just need to steal a few more people.
Right, exactly. Yeah, Mike Minotti's in chat playing Final Fantasy 14 right now, so there you go. All right, before we get into the mess, let's explain ourselves here. Each weekday, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news, the catch-up, where we discuss the biggest topics consuming the lives of gamers everywhere, and maybe even bring in some of our own original reporting. We'll be doing that today, everybody. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings, or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. If you are watching on there, please be sure to hit that like button. I don't know, it helps. And, it's a nice thing to do. I like it when people are nice. Okay, we have a lot to get into. Let's start the morning mess with a Black Panther game is in development. Mike, what's going on with your shirt? You're wearing, what's going on here? Why would you come to a show? We're talking about Marvel games and wear that shirt.
I thought we were talking about just like comic games in general.
No.
Oh, give me one. Oh.
Whoa, what's happening here? Whoa, this is a family show. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay. Actually, let me see it.
There
okay.
we go.
No,
we got the Spider-Man shirt.
Very good.
So your friendly neighborhood.
There you go. Perfect. Spider-Man, a very successful video game from Sony. There are more Marvel games in the works. You might be surprised to find out. Let's go through the details here. This comes from us here at Giant Bomb. The project is called Project Rainier, and that refers, I believe that refers to the mountain in Washington. We'll get to why that's relevant here in a second. It is a single-player game. It is in very early development, and the game starts with Black Panther being dead, and the player is going to take on the challenges of becoming the new Black Panther, and that seems to be the setup for the game. It is very likely being produced by the new Seattle studio that was founded by Monolith Productions vice president and studio head Kevin Stevens. So yes, this is an EA published game, but I think this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this. When the Wakanda Forever trailer came out, I was like, I remember hearing about this. Let me look a little bit closer. I got some more information. I was kind of like, okay, this is very early. What is the angle to sort of that makes sense talking about this? And it's very much, this is the continued transition at EA from being like, hey, everything needs to be a live service, to be like, oh, wait, Jedi Fallen Order did very well. What if we could replicate that in other places? And that is exactly what they're going for with this Black Panther game. And, this is a new studio, but with a lineage that goes back to those what is the Middle Earth games that people were very fond of.
Shadow of War and Shadow of Middle Earth. Yep.
Exactly. And so they're gonna go for that. And it does seem like right now, again, very early. They're looking at making this a big open world Black Panther game. How does that sound to you, Mr. Mike Williams?
Sounds very good. The weird touch point I have is I'm like, oh, the player gets to step in. So I'm like, as the players, that I assume that's going to be a character they've created, like
It would
new
have
Black
to
Panther,
be, right? Yeah.
Like, maybe not Shuri, maybe one of the comic versions, like
Right.
Casper Cole or something like that. But like in my head, as soon as you said the player gets to, I'm like, oh well, you character creator. I'm like,
Well, okay, so yeah, I could see the hang up. Let me add a little bit of color, a little bit of context there to sort of maybe fill out why it's phrased that way. This sounds like many of these details come from the pitch. And so I think when you're pitching something, you'd be like, what is the player's motivation? Where's the player fit into this story? Right. And not necessarily like, oh, the player's going to bring all of their customizations and stuff, because I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, we don't want a white person in Black Panther. So like, you can't go and just create a white guy and be like, all right, that's Black Panther now. Here's my legally blonde character who's going to be Black Panther. No, so I think the understanding here is like, yeah, they are going to, if we use Jedi Fallen Order as a signpost, I think it's going to be probably very similar to that in terms of structure of the story and the characters and a strong narrative. And then just maybe a more open world game instead of this Metroidvania game that they gave us with Jedi Fallen Order. Again, how does that sound? Like overall, like you kind of, it does sound like you're vibing with the overall stuff here, right?
Oh yeah, I love the idea, and I really enjoyed the stuff that Monolith was doing with the Shadow games. I enjoyed both of them immensely, even though Shadow War fell off once you got to the end game, and the monetization in that whatever mode, I forget what it was called, started kicking in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was almost hyped for their Wonder Woman game. If that, who knows if that's going to happen? With the Warner Brothers Discovery stuff.
True.
But yeah, no, open world Black Panther game would be great. It was. I'm one of the few people that kept playing Avengers. I probably played Avengers too much, even though I reviewed it and said it wasn't great. I kept playing it. It was my most played PlayStation game by I think I had 120 hours in it. I was just like, oh, I failed myself. But they added Black Panther to that, and it was cool. But also, like, the game was mostly dying at that point.
Correct.
So, I was just like, well, this is cool, but this is the end of that. So that's kind of a shame.
And I think like this brings us to like the direction that EA is headed, the direction Disney is headed. Now Disney and EA work together on Star Wars. I have some guesses to why this works, and a lot of it does come back to Jedi Fallen Order did work, and and it also is a different division at Disney, and EA is probably like saying, hey, look, Star Wars didn't work out, but we do have a new studio, we have maybe some other stuff. Maybe we can make a deal like this work again, especially if we built it in the same model that we used for the previous one successful game, that like the unqualified successful game that we did before. But like from Disney's perspective, do you think like this is them reacting a little bit to what happened with Avengers and being like, let's try a new partner and try this again and try something different?
I think it's a continuation because the Avengers was already the result of Disney being like, well, let's actually give out our IPs to different developers and to see what works. Because like back in the 90s, you used to have the Star Wars era of games. They were making a ton of games. And the truth of it is, like, a lot of brands are worried about, hey, if a bad game happens, that's going to tank the brand. Realistically, all that happens is like 5 years later, we've forgotten what the bad game was.
Mm-hmm.
Or we remember it like fondly, like I remember Jedi Power Battles, which was a Star Wars Episode 1 game. It was terrible, but I remember it fondly. So like, if you come out with a game, like if EA comes out with this Black Panther game and it's not good, that's on EA.
Mhm.
That's not going to change, Insomniac Spider-Man or Miles Morales or their upcoming Wolverine game from doing well.
Right.
So
Well, I mean, you mentioned a bunch of Sony games there. Are you surprised that? I'll just ask: are you surprised Sony isn't doing this game and kind of keeping its Marvel gaming universe going?
I would be, except they're only letting Insomniac do stuff. Like
Right.
if they move to another developer, and Insomniac can only make a certain number of games.
Hmm.
So maybe if they were like, they would turn to Gorilla and were like, "You're making Marvel games now, man." I,
Right.
I could see that, but I feel like Gorilla is in on its own thing right
Yeah, they're
now. So
not. I
like
mean, they
all of
have
their other
successful
studios
own
are
IP.
focused.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Um,
just about like that though. It's like, okay, so this has opened up another publisher coming in doing a major Marvel character. I'll just say I don't want to like I'm not spoiling everything here. Not that I consider news to be spoilers, but there's other games from Disney, from Marvel in development. I'll just say, like, when I say that and we see the possibility of other the studios coming in and doing games, not just Sony and maybe not just EA. Who do you, like? What other games do you want to see next? Like, we got Black Panther. We know Wolverine is coming. What's the game that you want to see from Marvel next?
so I wrote like way back in the day. This was when Star Wars. This was in the middle of the sequel trilogy, and they hadn't let all the stuff out. And I was like, play around, let it out. I kind of want to see some interesting mixes. Like if you're letting the IP go out the door, why not give it like open it up to some interesting developers? Like, what does a sweary Moon Knight look like? Or
Sure.
something like that. Like what is who does Shadow Warrior? Flying Hog?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the developer of Shadow Warrior. Like, what if they did a Punisher game or something like that?
Right.
Um, and probably my biggest one is X-Men Destiny was a horrible missed opportunity in that the pitch is fantastic. Like you make your own mutant and you're pulled between the X-Men and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Right.
Uh
That's the
give me
Silicon
that.
Knights
Like
game, right?
yes, that
Okay.
was the Silicon Knights game, in the middle of them doing all of
Yeah.
their legal
Yeah. Dennis
nonsense and
Dyack being Dennis Dyack. Yeah. Sure.
so yeah, just somebody do that X-Men RPG, please.
Yeah. I'm
I'm
right there
waiting
with you.
for it. And Activision, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, come on,
Yeah.
come on now.
Yeah, you just keep them coming. I'll say that none of those is what I've heard so far. So maybe they'll listen to this and they'll be like, Mike Williams is right. We got to get all those games in cooking. We got to get them
Exactly.
cooking. If anyone has any questions about Black Panther, Marvel, and stuff like that, I'll take some questions. Some GrubbSnax questions here in the catch up in a little bit. But let's keep the show moving for now. Roller Champion support is going to wrap up after season 3. This is another original that I'm bringing to you. I talked a little bit about this on a podcast I was on the weekend, Xbox era. The game launched in May, and Ubisoft is already sort of looking at like the numbers and saying, okay, we've had multiple seasons of support already, and once this, I believe they're in season 3 right now, and they're saying once this wraps up, the plan is, as of right now, to let that be the last season. I don't know if that means they shut down the game, but I do think that means active development on new content probably will begin to wrap up right around that time. Mike, did you play any Roller Champions?
Uh, Briefly, like real quick. And I feel sort of bad. It's just uh, you don't have enough time. Like a lot of these large live service games, like you pick one, like you're a Destiny 2 player or whatever, and that is the game you play, and then occasionally you play some single player games
Yeah.
otherwise. And Roller Champions just like it was a fine game. It just fell afoul of that. And uh it's currently part of Ubisoft's larger problem of
Yeah.
their situation in the industry and lack of major titles.
Yeah, there are a lot of great goop coming from Ubisoft, right? Where it's just very easy to ignore. A lot of it feels like everything else. Now, Roller Champions does have like it does not feel like a
Yep.
Tom Clancy game, obviously, but it's also like it does feel a lot like it comes from the same place that like a Hyperscape came from, where they're like, we're
Right.
just like throwing ideas at the wall for a live service game that's going to stick. And this one just feels like it's not going to stick as well.
Yeah, it's just and there's a lot of them. What's the Rumble versus the other the wrestling game? There's the one with the ball. There's just a ton of these style of games. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's semi sports,
Sure.
competitive.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's cool. That's fine. Try it out. It's just again, a lot of people are already tied to whatever their game is,
Knockout
and
City says the chat. That's right. Knockout City. Yeah.
Knockout City,
Yep.
and you have to be above and beyond, either in a game sense or in an IP sense, to pull people in immediately.
You know, and just like to circle back real quick, that's I think one of the reasons that EA, after having that experience with Star Wars, was still willing to go with Marvel, because IP and founding new IPs is really challenging. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of investment, and they probably look at the math there and like, we could invest in trying to start a new IP that we don't know if is going to be successful or not, or we could use that money to license something and go from there. Ubisoft is in this weird position where it's like they have some IPs that are recognizable, that they have invested in over time, but they are sort of, they're also throwing everything at the wall with those individually. Like there is right now Tom Clancy's The Division Heartland, which is another battle royale. They were
Right.
doing a Ghost Recon one that got canceled. And then, you know, they have X Defiant, which isn't going to be a Tom Clancy game anymore, but it's still going to be like a Call of Duty like. They have so many things that they are already doing with those. At a certain point, when they have like teams that need to try new stuff, they are like, okay, I guess we could try Roller Champions, or should we be doing the thing we're doing with Avatar or a Star Wars game, which they are also doing. So
Right.
Ubisoft's trying a lot of different things. Not everything's going to end up working. Also, someone in chat asked what was the context for Rainier. I'm pretty sure it's that the fact that the studio is in Seattle, Mount Rainier is in Washington,
Yep.
and the studio's right there. So I'm sorry, I kind of like said that and didn't really close the circle on that for everybody. Square Enix's Tactics Ogre remake leaks again, and it's coming in November. This is according to Michael McWhorter at Polygon. Square Enix's still unannounced remake of classic strategy RPG Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling Together is coming to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 on November 11th, according to leaked details from Sony's PlayStation Store. Those details, posted by PS Deals, include new screenshots of Tactic Ogre Reborn and a long list of improvements to the original game. Those improvements include new high-resolution or high-definition graphics, revamped enemy AI, fully voiced cutscenes in both English and Japanese, and music that has been re-recorded with live performances. Mike, I'm pretty excited. I like the Tactics Ogre games that I played before. I remember being pretty excited to play the one for N64 when I was like so jealous of Final Fantasy because I was a Nintendo fanboy. I'm like, maybe Tactics Ogre will be my Final Fantasy, and I played it quite a bit. I never beat it, but I enjoyed it. And then since then, I've gotten way more into tactics games, and now I'm like ready to go back. And here they are, ready to deliver this. Where are you at with Tactics Ogre? And does this all sound about right for the current Square Enix?
Oh, I'm a tactics hoe. I'm
Oh,
like
there we go.
all like deep into tactics, and sometimes I'm on uh to point out three moves ahead. It's a podcast about strategy games, including
It is
tactics games.
the podcast about strategy games, I believe. The
Yeah, so I'm really excited. You know, it's a day one buy. Looking at the leaked screenshots, um, I'm not a fan of what they did with the sprites. They basically did some sort of upscaling plus a filter to makes them look a little smeary. I would have rather they, gone in and redrawn them for, like, I know it's for resolution purposes, so this
Mhm.
game can run on a PS5 or a PC at higher resolutions. Um, so I am not a fan of the sprites. The rest of it looks fine. Like the character art is great. The fonts that they've chosen all look awesome. Um, and Tactics Ogre is a great game if you've gotten through Final Fantasy Tactics. Tactics Ogre is like sort of the next step up for you. get in there and get it going. It's a fantastic game. Like I said, day one buy. And it's the year of tactics continues because we're also getting Front Mission First, I believe it's called. Dio Field Chronicle.
Yes.
We got what was it called? Triangle Strategy earlier
Yeah.
this year. Digimon Survive. So we are tactics at, and then Midnight Suns, which is vague, like
Uh,
it's from the XCOM studio, but
yeah.
it's
Right. They said it's not. It doesn't have XCOM gameplay, but it has. I mean, it's definitely from that same lineage. There's a lot
yeah,
of like there's like cards and stuff. I'm really excited to try that one as well. Yeah, but you're right. Yeah, the Tactics fans are definitely feasting this year. You know, I need to get into the Breach Advanced Edition, which just came out. So I'm like,
yeah.
that looks like the thing. If as soon as I get into that, that's all I'll be playing for like the next few weeks. So I'm like afraid to jump in, but I mean, I love that game so much. Advanced Edition, give me another reason to try it out. I definitely will. So yeah, when do you think we hear about this? If a November release date is what they're going to actually stick to, we probably hear about this in the next couple of months, right?
BGS.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
BGS probably.
that's in what is that, September?
Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense, and especially with the Tactics Ogre and the Ogre Battle franchise, which yeah, people remind me those are two different things, but they're sister series. They're very popular in Japan, or at least they were more popular in Japan than they were worldwide. Although I expect them to try to launch this in a worldwide way, where they're like, hey, you know, these are things that have grown in popularity globally over time. So it's not like they're going to just keep
Yeah.
this in Japan or anything
One
like
of
that.
the parts of the leaked announcement was the fact that apparently the entire thing has been voiced over,
Right?
new voiceover in Japanese and in English. So
Exactly.
they
Yes.
are definitely at least aiming to pull in an English speaking audience.
Yeah, and this is something that has leaked previously. This game, it was
Yeah.
a trademark filing, and it was on the infamous
The
Nvidia
PlayStation.
list. Yes,
It was also on the yeah. It came up on the PlayStation Store, so this is like the fourth leak
yes,
for it.
exactly. Yes, so I'm pretty sure this one might be real. All right, moving along. LeBron James joins Multiversus alongside Rick and Morty, and this comes from Rachel Kaiser at GamesBeat. Developer Player First Games announced at San Diego Comic-Con that 3 new fighters are coming to the Multiversus roster. The newest additions are none other than Rick and Morty from the show of the same name and LeBron James. Yes, that LeBron James. She says she guesses she should qualify. James appears in the game bearing his Space Jam persona, not just as his usual self. I'm a little... I mean, I get it because that's a WB property, but I kind of just wanted photorealistic, 100% just a human man with LeBron James in this game fighting Bugs Bunny and Steven Universe and Batman.
The question is, would he have been so like? Are the other characters smaller? Would he have been full size? Like, what is the scale
Yeah,
we're
right.
working at here?
Yes.
Because, like, in the movie, like, I guess Bugs would be a little. So is like Bugs is almost the same height as Superman in the game. So it's
Right.
complex. It's about canon, and we
Uh-huh.
want to stick to canon.
Right. And Smash Brothers does a good job of like some of the characters scale up and scale down pretty well, right? So it's like that can work in fighting games. It's not a GoldenEye odd job scenario, which I feel like we bring up odd job on the show once a show, but here we are again. It's not like an odd job scenario where it's like, oh, the hitbox is going to be so much smaller and that's unfair. You would just scale other things like you do in a fighting game. So yeah, you just make him like, what is he like 6'10", like I don't know, but like yeah, like that would make him tower over Superman, and again, full just human skin in the game, not this cartoon Space Jam character.
Yeah, he'd move like Sentinel in the Marvel Capcom
Yes,
games.
exactly.
Just this big slow fighter just coming and just yeah, it'd be great. It'd be fun. But I mean, I'm looking forward to it. The film was fine. It's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, fine. Let's see. Morty joins during the game's first season on August 9th. Players First hasn't specified when Rick will join, but it should be during season 1. The Player First will launch the open beta, in which James is included, on July 26th. That's tomorrow, and that's on PlayStation 5, PS4, Xbox, and PC. you could play that game right now if you want to try to buy your way into like the founders packs, like free to play games also do, or always do. But this is a free to play game. It'll be available tomorrow, but you probably will have to pay money for LeBron James just to unlock that character.
Yeah, and also LeBron being added, that at least for me, that opens the door, because Space Jam: New Legacy had a bunch of characters in the background, including Pennywise, the folks from Clockwork Orange. You know, there's a lot of characters in there that I think could come over to Multiversus.
In the original Space Jam had Bill Murray in it. Just have human Bill Murray in there and go to town. Although I haven't really looked. Apparently he's problematic now. So shit. God damn it. All right. Funko claims it has a AAA action platformer in the works. This comes from Chris Carter at Destructoid. Chris, his strap here was like, I'll believe it when I see it. But he says, Funko actually revealed the news at San Diego Comic-Con this past weekend, noting that the partnership involves a development deal with 1010 Games and some of the industry's best creators, and that's in quote. The UK studio has no real pedigree right now as an organization. It was formed in mid-2021, and the AAA Funko platformer due in 2023 will be their first test. Right now, they're focused on developing and then this is in quotes again, developing AAA content for current and next-gen consoles and PC, and the project itself is untitled. Strangely, the game is aiming for a T for teen rating, which will be wild to see play out in real time. Hopefully, this ends up faring better than the now closed Gears Pop game, which I think everyone forgot existed. Okay, Mike Williams, do you own any Funko Pops?
None.
It's a safe place. You could tell us the truth.
Not a single one.
Fair enough.
I do not like the aesthetic of the Funko Pop.
Yes. Can I be real? Can I be honest? This is why I really want it. I was in Target yesterday and I didn't buy any, but I saw like the 8-bit Funko Pops, which is just a slightly blockier version of Funko Pops. And it was for Stranger Things, which I'm not going to buy Stranger Things merch, but whatever. I'm like, that looks kind of nice, I guess, but it still looks very Funko Poppy. So I don't buy a lot of plastic stuff to put in my house in general. So I wasn't going to actually fall prey to this. I do
that. I have a bunch of them. I still buy amiibos, even though I don't use them. Like they're pretty good representations of the characters.
I have a bunch of high quality
Marvel Legends and Kamen Rider figure arts and stuff that are actually the picture I'm using of the background. The top of the bookshelf is all like Marvel Legends and figure arts and stuff. I just don't like the aesthetics of Funko Pop, but like game wise, this could be like the Lego games. Like,
sure.
The trick with the Lego games is, do you like the IP they're using for this specific game?
Yeah.
If so, you'll probably like the game. If not, whatever.
Well, I mean, it also has like the potential, like Fortnite, and Austin Walker said this, so all credit to him. But he's like, Fortnite is like Funko Pop. It's like plastic. You could put anything into there, and it fits. Well, Funko Pop already is that as well. You could put any sort of brand into this game and sort of, I don't know, it could be like a Disney Infinity, but maybe
Lego Dimensions.
Lego Dimensions. Yeah, exactly. So there's potential. I don't know. I hope that in the translation to a game, they take the opportunity to maybe make the characters look a little bit more like their original characters and a little bit less like the Funko Pops, but that might be against the purpose of the game. So I don't know.
Yeah.
And those things obviously sell, so who am I to judge?
And who's to know if the game, like, it's unlikely. It could turn out to be like an Astrobot, like an actually pretty good platformer.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say they started a poll in chat. I just want to see what it is. Oh no, I completely just broke everything. All right, let's. Okay, own any Funko Pops is the poll in chat right now. Everybody, check that out. I thought that might be it. Bayonetta creator says Nintendo never asked to make the series less risque. This comes from Brian at Nintendo Everything. Bayonetta creator Hideki Kamiya has reaffirmed that Nintendo has never requested to make the series less risque. The naive angel mode was revealed for Bayonetta 3 earlier this month. When it's enabled, the characters won't reveal as much skin. However, its inclusion doesn't have anything to do with a specific request from Nintendo based on Kamiya's comments. I see a lot of people bring up Nintendo when discussing the nudity in Bayonetta, but during our time with Bayonetta 1 port, Bayonetta 2, and Bayonetta 3, The only suggestion we received was regarding the Link costume in Bayonetta 1 and 2 and how it should have been a little bit more revealing. No bias influenced that aspect of the game, and I think players can enjoy the game without worrying that it may have been, worrying about like what it may have been. I'm not too surprised about this. Modern day Nintendo, pretty horny, Mike Williams. What do you think?
Not only are they pretty horny. I mean, you look at the prominence of, say, Zero Suit Samus in Smash, or even Bayonetta's inclusion in Smash. But look at the eShop. Like the eShop is at times Steam levels of horny.
Yes, exactly. Like just like almost like hentai, straight up hentai games, almost.
Right. So I don't think they particularly care, and especially like you're at Bayonetta 3. They're like, "Hey man, it's fine. We know what you're doing."
Yeah.
Another one is the other Monolith Soft does with Xenoblade. Like Xenoblade 2 had a lot of flavors of horny for people, and Nintendo let that one. They're like, "Yeah, I mean, go ahead. Like, we know what you're gonna do. Like, Nintendo is not gonna get like caught up. It's their own properties. I think they're mostly fine. In this case, I think it's Platinum just a little bit being like, I mean, can we maybe reach out just a little bit further and maybe broaden the audience a bit and maybe those sales to keep us on Nintendo's good side?
I think that's exactly what it is that Platinum is looking to make this as big of a success as possible. And they're the ones that are like, we want to do what we can to make it broadly appealing. I think that like even like I remember when Sakurai was talking about putting what was it, Terry into Smash Brothers, and then he like immediately brought up like, I know people thought we would bring Mai from King of Fighters or whatever, but she's too naughty, and like suggesting like she shows too much skin. I don't think that was ever Nintendo going, that character is too sexy, you see too much of her cleavage. I think that was legit just Sakurai making that choice, making that call. So I think Nintendo, like you said, mostly is sort of hands off with this stuff now. It's like, hey, what consenting adults do with their Nintendo Switch is none of our business. And it's like, okay, all right, fair enough, Nintendo. That's very different than what you were like in the 90s, but fair enough. And I think a lot of that is just like people remember what they were like in the 90s and early 2000s and are still like holding that as like, oh, that's still Nintendo today. And now they've changed a lot.
Yeah, and especially with the current CEO, he is more of a businessman, like less of a creative and more of just a straight businessman, which is why you're seeing a lot of, I think, like they just bought the animation studio, the Illumination Mario movie is coming. Like, those are the kinds of things that Iwata or maybe a previous CEO probably wouldn't have done. More, they were concerned about the sanctity of the games, whereas this new CEO is more of a businessman. It's like, how can we expand this?
Right,
what
and
about
they got
multimedia.
Yeah, and they're like distracting Miyamoto. Like Miyamoto might be embarrassed by all this, but they're like, Miyamoto, go create a theme park. And Miyamoto's like, ha, hee hee, I'm gonna go make a theme park. And then while he's distracted, they're like, all right, more boobs, more flesh. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, you know, they're like, Miyamoto comes back and it's like, what's happening in Xenoblade 3? What's going on here?
Wait,
and they're
the
like,
sword has cleavage? How is that even possible?
They're like, Miyamoto-san, no, don't worry about that. We're going to have Sony Animation do a Zelda movie. Go over there.
Go deal with that. Like, what are you talking about? And then he runs away again. Sorry, that's my Miyamoto hee voice. All right. Halo Infinite multiplayer is reportedly causing players to use 1 gigabyte of data per match. This is by Jordan Midler at VGC. 343 is currently investigating an issue which is reportedly causing Halo Infinite to download huge amounts of data during every multiplayer match in some cases. Almost as much as 1 gigabyte. First highlighted by Nick Meister. After every match, the game client would reportedly use between 305 megabytes and 900 megabytes of data. This caused alarm as playing the game for a few hours could unknowingly smash through a player's data cap in a single night. In response to this, Halo support Twitter said The team is investigating reports of Halo Infinite downloading extra data after multiplayer matches. An improvement for this issue will be included in August's drop pod update. That is okay. Here's the real deal. Halo Infinite needs every single thing that we talk about that game to be positive. It needs to be going in one direction, and everything we hear about this game continues just to push it in the bad direction, where it's just like this thing feels more and more like a tragedy every day. Where are you at with Halo Infinite, Mike?
It does. I dipped out because my issue was more on the cosmetic side.
Sure.
Battle passes are fine. It felt like it took a long time to unlock all the stuff on the Halo Battle Pass. I didn't have the time to sink into it. And even when I did, I like unlocked the Tenrai one. Their specific cosmetic system is just like I want to be able to mix and match parts and all the colors and everything, and their cosmetic system is like just like the Tenrai armor is just the Tenrai armor, and then you can also get bits to put on it. I'm like, that's not what I wanted. Like it's just a bad cosmetic system. The game is good. It's just I just couldn't put the heart into
I mean,
it.
this is where I'm at. Like I every time I play the game, I have a good time, but that was my stance for a really long time. It's like, yeah, I see why everyone's got problems with this game, but when I play it, I have fun.
Right.
At a certain point, though, everyone else like finding all these continuing issues and a lack of content that does affect people negatively. I'm like, well, all you have to do is just wait a little bit. People have waited a pretty long time. This game's going to be a year old here pretty soon. And you know, by then I do expect there to be more stuff, but I am not expecting that we are going to get to a point where, okay, they've put out everything that they said they were going to put out, and now, surprise, there's like this huge deluge of extra content on top of that. I'm not expecting anything like that. I think they're going to kind of do, I mean, at least I think that's a safe thing to assume is they're going to do the bare minimum of what they said they were going to do. And that is, continues to be pretty depressing. And that goes for the cosmetics, and it goes for fixing major issues, and it goes for adding in these modes. Now, I'm not going to say that, and maybe this is still more positive than most people, but I'm not going to say that this game is dead. I think once Forge mode comes out, it has a good chance of being revived because Forge is looking very promising. It looks very cool from what has leaked so far. And I think that means the community would have a good chance of rescuing it. But it's like, is the Forge community going to have a wider Halo community to even speak to, or will most of those people have already moved on? We'll see.
I think in general, one, especially with some of these larger live service games, there's more room to come back from the brink of terribleness. Like Destiny 2 definitely went through its struggle
Yes.
period. And then they've, righted the ship. And at least in this case, one, Microsoft has a lot of resources into this one.
Yes, definitely.
So I think they'll keep going. And when they do if they do right the ship, it being on Game Pass means everyone will just come right back since it's free. So like, I wouldn't particularly worry about it. It's not a situation like we were talking about with Ubisoft and Roller Champions. Microsoft cannot walk away from Halo Infinite.
Very true.
So,
I still think, like, in a couple years, where you might look back at this, or we might completely forgot that we ever felt this way if things turn around. It's just, this is definitely the grimmest part of the arc, and if the arc is going to arc up, that'd be great. But right now, it just feels like things are really, really dark for that game.
Yeah.
Stray is now the best user-rated Steam game of 2022 so far. This is by Chris Scullion at VGC. Stray has become the highest user-rated game on Steam this year, according to a weighted list. Steam 250, which is actually a pretty good website that like tracks the sentiment that people have on Steam. Steam 250 assigns Steam games a score determined by whether players give them a positive or negative review, combined with how many players review the game. Stray's score is currently 8.61 based on 42,665 votes, of which 98% are positive, making it top of the list of all games released in 2022 to date, as spotted by SkillUp, who's a great YouTuber, by the way. Hi, Skill. This pushes down God of War to second with its score of 8.56 based on 53,101 votes, of which 97% are positive. So that's this maybe way more positive sentiment for this game than I was expecting. I definitely enjoyed what I've played of the game. I didn't fall in love with it or anything, but it seems like it is doing like what is it, Untitled Goose Game style success, right? Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, seemingly, I do think part of it is they're maybe pulling people over to the PlayStation Plus, whatever the
Yeah,
system is.
plus
But
extra, yeah.
yeah, and people just like cat games. It's one of
Apparently.
there's a whole lot of like it's getting attention just because it is a cat game. It is
That's
a
definitely
cute.
true. But these are people
Um,
that like had to have bought it right on Steam, like so. You know, they bought it and they played it, and now their money's on the line, and they seem to be like, I mean, I guess is it as simple as I played as a cat and that was great, positive thumbs up score on Steam. Is that what's happening? You think?
I think there's probably some of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like the game was pretty good.
yeah,
It's not like I don't think it's amazing, but
same. Yeah, but it's
but
like, but if you had to give it a thumbs up or thumbs down, I mean, I would even as someone
right,
who's
you give it a
obviously going to go
thumbs
back,
up.
I'd give it a thumbs up too. Right? Okay, so I think that's probably kind of how this works. So, and it's like I think it's definitely true. It's like if people who like cats, if they go to this game, that's probably most of the people buying the game, and there's a lot of those people. They're probably going to feel pretty similarly or even more positive about it.
Right,
Um,
and that's how it is. You pull people in, and sometimes the hype pulls others in
yeah.
who may not even play. Like Elden Ring sold an absurd number of copies. Reasonably sure not a lot of those people will get very far at Elden Ring.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Um,
Although
like
you could look up like the achievements or whatever and stuff, and they're surprisingly good
it
for
was
like
actually
beating.
pretty good. Yeah.
Right, surprisingly good. But I bet once you get like past that percent, I bet a lot of those people, you're right, like played a little bit, it was too hard for them. You're definitely right about that.
Yeah.
All right, revealed documents show how Roblox plan to bend to Chinese censorship. This just posted on Motherboard Vice right before I went live, so I have a few of the pulled a few things from the story. But you can check this out on Motherboard. This comes from Joseph Cox. Last year, Roblox launched a version of its game in China called Luyo Boulage. Sorry, everybody. I failed you. Like other Western gaming companies that have entered the lucrative but heavily regulated Chinese market, it had to partner with a Chinese company, Tencent, who would operate the game in the country. And Roblox had to host user data on local servers as required by law. But newly released internal documents reveal that Roblox assumed and prepared for the possibility that any Chinese partner it worked with could try to hack Roblox. On top of that, Roblox expected Tencent to copy the game and create its own version of it. Expect that, this is a quote, expect that hacking has already started. One slide in a presentation from 2017 called China MVP Ideas for August Trip Confidential Red. The slide dates from before Roblox ultimately announced a partnership with Tencent. Expected to ramp up after a deal is signed, possibly even by the partner. And again, they're referring to hacking attempts. The document also shows that the steps that Roblox had to take in order for its game to comply with Chinese censorship laws. Any maps created in the game had to respect the integrity of the country and not misrepresent the Chinese territory, including by recognizing Beijing's claim of self-ruled Taiwan as part of its territory, according to a presentation given to Roblox by Tencent. Users and developers also must not tamper with historical facts and must not appear any images or names of national leaders. There's more to this story, but this is kind of, to me, Mike, the least surprising thing in the world that
Yeah.
companies trying to. I mean, you go to work with Tencent. This is the way the whole system is set up. Like, you can't just launch your game there. You won't get approved. You have to go through a third party like Tencent for it to get approved. And the reason they do that is so that you will obey all these laws, right?
Yeah, I mean, so that A, you'll obey all these laws, and B, that the money runs into Chinese companies as well.
Exactly. They take a huge cut of these things. Like we talk about the split between Steam and developers being like 70-30, 70 for the developer. You go to China, it's flipped. It's the other way. You get about 30% of that money, and the rest goes to Tencent and then all the stores and all these other various other things. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and there's a lot of government regulations and a lot of stuff flows through that, and so they knew it was going to happen, but reaching the Chinese marketplace in terms of size is, more important to them. Um, which is why, they were like, "Oh, we probably expect to have a Chinese clone of the game eventually," which, does happen on a regular basis, even if you
Yes.
don't have access internally. Like as soon as Roblox launches, if it's a success, like everyone's going to be like, okay, well, let's do that
Yes.
as well.
There's already that
Um,
Fall Guys mobile clone, right? As soon as it went free to play, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, why don't we just do that?" And there was Stumble Guys on mobile, and it was a huge success. So yeah, that just happens.
right, and they're getting particularly strong. And in fact, I do think as a benefit, what's happening is you're seeing this wave of Chinese indie games, and a lot of those people are people that worked at these companies, Tencent, NetEase, whatever, um, and are now taking those skills separately to do their own games,
Hmm.
and doing some really impressive stuff. So, um, part of that is just, hey, this is what it's like working uh, with Chinese companies. Apple has to deal with it. Nintendo has to deal with it launching in the country, and especially if you're a developer. Hollywood definitely has to deal with it. Although China has recently shut a lot of movies out of Hollywood in
Hmm.
preference for their own movies, sort of tanking their own local box office. But yeah, this is all expected, and even in that presentation, Roblox said, "Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen." And that's before you even get to Roblox itself being a utter shit show.
Yep, absolutely, and like on its own and stuff. So it's like it's just a company that's already sort of exploiting young workers who are making a lot of its content, wanting to be like, let's maximize our return by completely complying with China. Yeah, I'm not too surprised.
Yeah.
Uh, let's see. Let's get to the catch up. Where the warning I gave you last week about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 probably leaking online and all of the leaks being out there and all the story spoilers being out there. Well, that came to fruition. That game was available on eBay last week. Like they had a whole lot of them. A bunch of people bought them, including I saw Mr. Matty Plays, who's a friend of mine. He bought one and he's playing it already. A lot of content creators are actually bought copies of that stuff, but it's also been uploaded online and people are playing it on things like Steam Deck, and you are gonna see a lot of story spoilers. Mike Williams, are you worried about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 being spoiled for you?
No, but that's just because in spoilers, I'm not a particular spoiler phobe. Like
Yeah,
whatever.
same here.
Like just
Yeah,
show me.
yeah,
Like in
exactly.
fact, for me, like the immediate, like I heard, there's Xenoblade Chronicles spoilers out there. Let's go. Let's get out there. And I mean, I pre-ordered the Lord save me. I pre-ordered the special edition, which was trying to
Oh no.
pre-order that on the eShop was a nightmare. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's spoilers out there, especially uh, spoilers related to the world building in general
Mm-hmm.
and the franchise. So watch out if that is a thing that worries you, um, because they definitely have it running on emulators.
Oh yes, they definitely. I've straight up seen the tweet of the guy having it on his Steam Deck. So, yep, it's out there and it seems to run just fine. So people are gonna have no issue with getting through that whole thing and probably uploading a lot of footage from that game. Let's see. Let's do this real quick. Someone called Danny O'Dwyer and the team at Noclip did a documentary about the Bloodborne PSX demake. Which just looks incredible. You can take a look at footage now if you're watching the video version. Someone is completely demaking Bloodborne and in PSX style graphics. He put up a documentary today about this whole thing. It is a lengthy 43 minutes deep diving into like what this concept entails. And I haven't watched it all yet, but I'm looking forward to it. But you can see like the early systems. They talk about like what 90s game design would mean when you're going back for taking Bloodborne back to that. So I'm very much looking forward to watching this, and you should all as well. Shout out to Danny. All right. Now, I said I would answer some questions, but when I reset my thing, I lost a lot of questions. So you have like 30 seconds right now to send in some more questions if you have anything about Black Panther or anything else. Let's. I got 2 right here from Dominito. Are other major publishers looking at Marvel IPs to license for video games? Is Microsoft looking at the success of Spider-Man and scouting potential Marvel IPs to get for their own first-party superhero games? I will say that I've not heard anything about Microsoft getting any of these IPs. And the other things I've heard are not... Let's just stop the speculation. The other one's at EA as well. Let's just stop the speculation. So, yeah. So maybe there are other publishers like eyeing this stuff, but right now it seems like Sony has their deal. Square Enix's deal has ended, and now it does seem like a lot of that focus maybe shifted to EA, but that doesn't mean it's like going to be exclusive to EA or anything like that. I think Disney obviously has created the situation where they are working with a lot of publishers, and they're going to keep that going. So I would imagine that, like, yeah, other companies are looking at the possibility of making those partnerships, but I don't know if it's like something that's going to definitely come to fruition. I mean, Mike, like we've seen, like Ubisoft immediately jump on Star Wars, like when that became available. What would stop any studio from wanting Marvel other than maybe the price tag?
It's definitely the price tag. Like, I'm wondering, like, Embracer picked up all of the Square Enix Western studios. You can probably still, maybe like continue the Guardians of the Galaxy series, but I don't know if Embracer wants to spend whatever the licensing fee for that is or whatever the cut is, when they can just do stuff that they already own. And I think that's pretty much where Microsoft is. Like, it's less that
I agree.
Like that they can't, or Marvel is snubbing Microsoft or Xbox, and more that Microsoft is like, right now, after all these acquisitions, let's just focus on what we have and get our stable like in line. Like, let's get Fable back on the board.
Right.
Let's fix Halo Infinite.
Right. Let's figure out the future of Call of Duty once that deal goes through. Like, that's bigger than anything we could do with Marvel.
Let's fix WoW. Let's get Warcraft back on board. Like, a lot of that stuff is the stuff that Microsoft is focused on, getting its own house in order. And I think Ubisoft probably would have been in the same boat. But, Star Wars came up and they were just like, I mean, we can't not get Star Wars.
Right.
So... I think that's it. And like Take-Two's another one of those where it's like, I mean, sure, we're doing that with Midnight Suns, but I don't think they're going to go further in that, because they like, let's focus on our own stuff that we can make money without giving it to somebody else.
We need to be figuring out the future of GTA and all this. I think you nailed all of that. I think that's all exactly right. Octo points out that Stray already has 4 times the reviews of Goose Game on Steam. Goose Game, I think, was exclusive to Epic Game Store for a year, though, I think. But maybe that's not right. But still, either way, like, Stray has a lot of reviews, a lot of hype going for it, and it's very successful. Let's see, from our rules, maybe, okay, he asked Mike's top 3 games of the year so far. I don't know if you have that list, like, right off the top of your head, Mike. Maybe you do, but if you don't, like, what are some favorites from this year so far?
Triangle Strategy... Stranger of Paradise. Damn. There's something I'm missing. What else came out this year?
I need to play Triangle Strategy. I'm like, gotta pick that up soon.
It's been a very weird year. Me. Like, not just the releases that it came out. I've done a lot of going back and playing old games.
I mean, it's been a good year for that. It really has been.
Yeah, and especially now we're in the whole I think it was Luke Plunkett of Kotaku was talking. It's like, yeah, there's just nothing like to cover. Like, we're just gonna cover whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's not to say no games are coming out. Games obviously are, and people care about many of these things. Stray just came out, but compared to what it was like earlier this year, where like the obvious thing to cover was Elden Ring, and everyone was reading every last drop of details they could get on Elden Ring. That is completely flipped, and people are tuning out a little bit, I think, and that's not too surprising after the pandemic and people like, and Elden Ring sort of capping off the pandemic. I think for a lot of people, at least mentally, I know that it's flaring up again. I know that, but that's not the way people are treating it. And so I think a lot of people are like, all right, and now it's time to give video games a break in my brain, and I'll tune back in when something big happens. And that's probably for a lot of people going to be God of War or whatever else. So right now it's kind of like, who's reading video game news? The people who've always have been, and they'll read anything, and they don't really given us single signals of like, focus on this and we'll care about that. Not that has ever like driven much of my stuff, but still I've definitely paid attention to it. All right, let's, you know what, Octo asks Mike emote when. We'll get on that. We'll see what we can do. Okay, let's go to the poll here. Let me bring this up. On Friday, I asked, are you excited about the future of Ubisoft games? And 82.9% said no, 17.1% said yes. I think that's even lower than I was expecting. I guess when you ask it like that, maybe that's a bit like you're not going to get the people. Like if I asked if you are excited about the next Assassin's Creed game, I don't know. Maybe it would be a little bit more positive, but I don't think it would be much more positive. We talked about this on this show, Mike. Ubisoft sort of lost in the woods a little bit. Are you excited about anything they have coming up?
I think the issue that they have is like Assassin's Creed Valhalla was definitely the end of that style of play. Like, okay, I think people are getting tired of this style, which means your next game has to be a reinvention, which Infinity sounds like it's going to be. Um, Far Cry 6 was definitely like, okay, this style of Far Cry is long in the tooth.
Yes.
Your next game has to be something else.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to find out what the new Far Cry is. Ghost Recon, like after Wildlands, which was actually a pretty great game. Breakpoint was like, and again, like all of these major franchises, they either need to reinvent or they've lost their way or they don't have anything like Prince of Persia and Splinter Cell. And then the new stuff didn't work out. So they're just like not flailing. I'm sure they're working on stuff, but there's no feeling of what's next. So it's like, are you excited for the next Assassin's Creed? It's not going to like Rift is going to be, like Valhalla, but that's more of like a rogue style, like a smaller game that they blew up.
Exactly. A
The
DLC
next
that they kind of
Assassin's
expanded on
Creed,
their own. Yes, absolutely.
right. And the next Assassin's Creed is going to be something completely different, and I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And the next Far Cry has to be something completely different, and I don't know what that is. So, like, in terms of excitement, I'm just like, just wait and see. They'll pull it out. But right now, they don't have a lot, and all of the experiments, like they were willing to experiment when the money was high. Now we are trending downwards. We are uh, heading into recession level economics. So like everyone's pulling back. Like
everyone's being a little bit more risk averse, even more than they were before, right?
Yep. So like that's why that is also part of why Ubisoft is cutting off these experiments very quickly.
Yeah.
And being like, let's go back to the stuff that works.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, a lot of companies are seeing that recession coming in and being like, Apple and Google have been like, we're going to do hiring freezes. We're not spending a lot of money. And Ubisoft is hitting those, but also they have their own talent drain problems because of the sexual allegations and other issues that they had there.
Yep.
So it's going to be a while.
Let's tomorrow's poll for Game Mess Mornings. We'll check on this one tomorrow. After Avengers, do you still have interest in Marvel superhero games if they go more single player? I'm guessing many people are going to say yes to this one. I think that there's still faith in this concept. I think even Avengers, like the single player stuff that you did like early in that game, most people really enjoyed that, right? So I think this is probably going to be pretty exciting to most people, right?
Yeah, I mean, Avengers, even the end game, like it needed a full like loot overhaul. You could have pulled something out of that.
Yeah.
It's just Square Enix was not going to be the company that was going to do that.
Yep.
Like because that's the Japanese and Western sides that were completely separate. Like the Western side was just sort of taking marching orders from Japan, and Japan
Yep.
didn't really seem to have faith, and that bore out in them ultimately just selling them completely. Um, so, like, I think maybe if that had Avengers had ended up at another publisher, maybe they would have gone back and fixed that. That's
Hmm.
like I said, it's a solid game. You just really needed to overhaul loot and progression and stuff like that once you got to the end game.
All right, Mike Williams, where could people find you on the internet? Where could people catch up with all your stuff?
You can find me on Twitter at AutomaticZen, ZEN, and you can find me every day at fanbyte.com, notably the Link Show, where I write about Final Fantasy XIV, but also occasionally movies and televisions and comics.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Giant Bomb this week. We're gonna go. I'm gonna go to the meeting right now. We're gonna figure out what we're doing this week. But I'm pretty sure. Well, 100% we'll have the Bombcast tomorrow. Tune in for that. So that means no Game Mess mornings actually tomorrow. I meant Wednesday on that. So I actually should have changed the time on this. But whatever. We'll talk about that on Wednesday. So then Giant Bomb Bombcast tomorrow. We will probably have a few quick looks. We'll probably have a few other things. We'll probably do an arcade pit, voicemail dump truck on Thursday, UPF on Friday. And I know that we're planning a few other things that we are probably going to try to get off the ground this week. So keep an eye out for that. We'll let you all know here real soon, especially after we do this meeting and actually figure it out. Okay, we are going to get out of here. Thank you so much to Mike for joining me. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself. And goodbye.